I recently read an article dovetailing on what you said about juveniles and marijuana, or use and violation when they're in the system, for example. That Texas has a big problem with juveniles being incarcerated, whether in juvenile facilities or in adult facilities. Is that true? And what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So it's two different things. One is about juveniles being incarcerated post-adjudication, and one is pre-adjudication, right? So there's a big problem with post-adjudication incarceration because you're talking about TJJD. You're talking about essentially prison for kids. There used to be like a population of like 5,000 kids in state lockup. That number over the years after lots of reform has gone down to about 1,000. There are 5 units left in TJJD. And if you read the papers, you read Texas Tribune, the Texas Observer, they're terrible because they're very, very far away. They're way, way understaffed. They're way, way underfunded. And you have essentially 5 facilities taking care of 1,000 kids. There's not a lot of economies of scale. So they're constantly short on staff. And the staff they can get are not always the best. And so it's just ripe for abuse. And a lot of those kids are there because they violated their previous probation, because they were smoking pot on the probation, they missed going to court, they did something they weren't supposed to do. Some of them are there because they pick up new charges, but a lot of times they're picking up new misdemeanor charges. And they're not what we call, they're not serving a determinate sentence. Which basically says like there's a good chance you're going to go to adult prison after you finish this one. Right? So there's only about 250 of them out of the 1,000 that are determinate sentences. That means that there's a good chance they're going to finish serving in juvenile, then be transferred over to adult side. So, you know, one of the big things we're trying to do is like, how about we just stop putting these kids into prison?
Yeah, no kidding. Who
are not determinate sentence. If they're not going to be transferred to an adult prison, why are we spending the money putting them into a juvenile prison? I think judges around the state are pulling back and sentencing fewer and fewer kids to TJJD because they understand it's not effective. It's a really bad place. Kids are not getting the help they need. And that's something we can talk about. We can talk about what we're working on for next session to change all this. The second thing, really connected to Harris County specifically, if you read the Chronicle article that came out, is that we're locking a lot of kids up before they're adjudicated.
Right.
And that's a real big problem too. In the past, I think, you know, the Arnold Foundation or one of the foundations gave Harris County like a bunch of money to say like, you guys need to study this and look at the problem this way and then get your numbers down, get your pre-adjudication numbers down. And we did that, and the numbers went down, and slowly it's been creeping back up. This is unusual because nationwide there has been a dramatic decrease in the number of juvenile arrests. Because sort of like in 2015, we passed legislation like started banning zero tolerance at schools, saying like you cannot have a blanket policy where you just say every kid who does this is going to get arrested. Every individual case has to be considered. We told schools stop sending us kids for stuff that they're just being kids. I know that it could be a crime, but stop.